So we've made it to a brand new year. That means there's a whole new set of movies to be excited for. So today I'm gonna stop and share my 10 most anticipated movies of 2022. Coming in at number 16, The Flash. Now you might be thinking, I thought this was a top 10 list. And this video does contain my top 10, but there's a lot more than 10 movies I'm excited for in 2022, so you get some extras. Now, The Flash is a movie I really wanted to be able to put in my top 5 for the year because so much in this movie goes back to my childhood and the things that made me love comic book movies and TV shows in the first place. I remember back in 1990 when The Flash TV show debuted, and I wanted to record it. My dad gave me a VHS tape, and I recorded over my mom's copy of Flashdance with The Flash, and I've only taken my picture with 2 celebrities at Comic-Cons. One of them, William Shatner, for the obvious reasons. The other, John Wesley Shipp, Barry Allen in the 1990s Flash TV show. Another huge piece of my childhood love for comic book movies and things like that was Batman 1989. I still have all of my trading cards 32 years later. And this is a Flash movie with Michael Keaton in it. All of it is coming together. It's multiverse. So much about this movie has me so excited. And then there's been all the rumors over the last week about how they're using this movie to boot Batfleck and Cavill out of the DCEU. And it's like all the air got let out of the balloon. And it's like, okay, there's a bunch of stuff here that I am amped for. And I hate that idea. Whereas Spider-Man No Way Home celebrated all the past Spider-Man franchises and made you love them even more, this sounds like the WB using the DCEU to crap on the Snyderverse, which is an insane thing to do on so many different levels. So on the one hand, this movie is pushing a whole bunch of the right nostalgia buttons for me. It's drawing from some great source material. And on the other, it sounds like the WB repeating all of their worst mistakes over and over again. Number 15, Everything Everywhere All at Once. Now, this is a movie that was absolutely not on my radar until I went to go see Spider-Man No Way Home, and they played the trailer for this movie, and right up front, A24 came up on the big screen, and I was like, A24, that's a weird movie to promote in front of Spider-Man No Way Home, until I saw the trailer, and basically, it's an original multiverse story starring Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis, and I watched this trailer and I was like, this is an A24 movie for me. Most of A24, not really on my wavelength, weird in the wrong ways for me, and I watched this one, I went, man, I don't know what I'm watching right now, but I want to watch the entire movie. And the other thing about it is that it's a multiverse movie that's not based off an established property, so the gimmick isn't, hey, look, I know that person. Hey, they're from a different universe, but they're in this movie. No, it's all about the story and playing out what would happen if this was playing out where there was a multiverse. So that has me absolutely fascinated. Love that it's Michelle Yeoh and Jamie Lee Curtis, so I can't wait to check this one out. Number 14, Lightyear, one of 2 Pixar movies coming out in 2022, and a very interesting way to continue the Toy Story franchise by basically making a movie out of the movie Andy went to go see about Buzz Lightyear in the Toy Story franchise. And so it is this sci-fi space adventure starring Buzz Lightyear, but it's not about toys. And that's just a clever, interesting way to expand a franchise without just rehashing, repeating the same beats. And based off the trailer they put out there, of course, the production's going to be top-notch because it's Pixar, but it looks like something different from Pixar because it is a space adventure. Throw Chris Evans into the mix, put all that together, and you've piqued my interest. Real quick, before I give you my top 13, which top 13 is not really a thing, but whatever, be sure to join me down below in the comment section. Share your picks for the most anticipated movies of 2022. Also, I have a companion video to this over on my Patreon page with 17 more of my most anticipated movies of the year. kind of because of all the delays the last 2 years, they're just dropping a ton of films of all kinds of different genres this year. So I got a lot of movies I want to talk about. Join at any level, and you can watch that video so you can see all 33 of my most anticipated films of the year. Number 13, The Gray Man. Now, this is a Netflix original from the Russo brothers, and they're reteaming with the screenwriters for Avengers Endgame. It is an action revenge thriller starring Ryan Gosling, Chris Evans, Ana de Armas, and it is the most expensive Netflix original film to date. Every one of those ingredients sounds awesome to me. I love action revenge thrillers. I want to see what the Russos can do post-MCU, and the cast is phenomenal, and it seems like Netflix wrote them a blank check to just tell a big, gigantic action movie. But the Russos put out a little movie last year called Cherry that was their follow-up to Endgame. It was my pick for the most disappointing movie of last year. Not the worst movie, but most disappointing. So there's a little bit of a fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice, shame on me situation potentially about to happen here. I really hope that doesn't happen. I'm hoping this one is their epic follow-up to Endgame, where Netflix lets them just go wild, telling a story of massive scale with some great stars. Next up, Thor, Love and Thunder. Now, Thor Ragnarok was just a shot of adrenaline into the Thor franchise, easily the best of that trilogy of films. And then with Infinity War and Endgame, there was this great new dynamic with the Asgardians of the Galaxy that I just absolutely loved. Taika Waititi is returning. Christian Bale's being thrown into the mix. There's so many great, exciting things that could potentially happen in Thor, Love and Thunder. At the same time, not really crazy about the idea of Jane Foster picking up the hammer and becoming Lady Thor. That doesn't seem like the right direction to take things. I get that there's comic book source material that is all based off of. That doesn't make it a good idea or appealing to me in particular. So this is another one of these ones where there's a bunch of stuff here where I'm like, that could be really cool. I can't wait to see more of that. But a couple red flags in there as well. Number 11, Jurassic World Dominion. Now, this is an interesting one because I wasn't the biggest fan of Jurassic World Fallen Kingdom, and I felt they wrote themselves into some strange spots with that film. But this franchise is one of those ones that no matter how many bad, disappointing movies they put out, I just always have this naive optimism that this is going to be the next great one. There's just something about dinosaurs in the present time that I'm just addicted to that. And I just always think that this is going to be the one that lives up to the original one, even though they never really do. And with the dinosaurs being on the mainland, that's an interesting new twist on the franchise. And they put out this little short film directed by Colin Trevorrow two and a half years ago, and it was actually really, really good, giving a little flavor for what this movie's gonna be like. And then they put out that 5-minute little clip about the beginning of the film on F9 last summer, and then they released it last month, so you can watch it on YouTube. And what they're showing looks really good, and so I'm a sucker for this franchise. I take the bait every single time. Hopefully it's not another trap. Bringing us into the top 10, Knives Out 2. Now, I just thoroughly enjoyed the original Knives Out. It was a great whodunit with a phenomenal cast that just had an intricate story, a nice sense of humor, and a distinct flavor and vibe. And the idea that we're gonna get another phenomenal cast, another whodunit mystery in a new location, all of that sounds good to me, and so can't wait to check it out. Number 9, Scream, the 5th movie in the Scream franchise and the 2nd movie in the Scream franchise with the title Scream, and the first one not directed by Wes Craven. I've said it many times before that Scream is my favorite horror movie of all time. The original film came out right as I was starting high school, and those Kevin Williamson self-aware meta horror films were the popular horror films during my formative high school years, and the best of the bunch was the original Scream, and so I just absolutely love that film. And I feel like they got the right people to continue the franchise by going with the Ready or Not people. They have the right tone, the right vibe, that when they announced them as the directors for this film, I was like, yeah, that's the right people to do this. So I'm just curious how it will play out, because so much of what made the original Scream work is that it was commenting on the horror genre from the previous 15 years while celebrating all the tropes at the same time. And I don't know if that necessarily works 25 years later, or how you have the meta humor that's so important to the franchise if that's not what the genre has been recently. So I'm curious about it, and I get to see the movie next week. So I'm very excited to see what they're able to do so many years later. Number 8, Mission Impossible 7. Now, this has been one of the most consistent action franchises of the last 25 years, save for the second film, and they keep reinventing themselves, and Tom Cruise keeps getting crazier and crazier and committing himself more and more to just making the best possible Mission Impossible films. Now, when they first announced that this movie was also going to be written and directed by Christopher McQuarrie, and he's also doing the 8th film, I did put out a video saying I'm not crazy about that idea, because one of the things that's kept the franchise fresh throughout the decades now is that they have switched out the directors up until Christopher McQuarrie. And so that a little bit bummed me out that we are going to have one person directing 4 of these movies straight. But the flip side to that is whatever he pitched, whatever he proposed, whatever kind of wavelength that him and Tom Cruise were on, that they're like, we just got to keep going with this guy. This is the right way to do it. And that they're doing 2 of them back to back to close out the whole franchise. I can't wait to check this one out. Simply put, it's been over 20 years since this franchise disappointed me, so we're in good hands. Then we have Creed 3. I've said it many, many times before that Rocky Balboa is my favorite movie character of all time. The Creed franchise has done a great job of continuing the story of the world of Rocky. And finally, with Creed 3, we're getting a movie in the Rockyverse that doesn't star Rocky in it, and Adonis Creed is going to get a story to stand on his own. I'm very curious how that's going to play out. Michael B. Jordan is directing the film, and so I've loved the previous 2 movies, and very curious, will he be able to stand on his own, especially because that's so much the theme of these movies is Adonis trying to find who he is on his own. And now they're giving a movie to see, can he work without Rocky and the previous film's mythology and characters kind of holding him up? What will this story be? I can't wait for a trailer and then the movie. Number 6, Samaritan. Speaking of Sylvester Stallone, he is starring in this movie. This is an original superhero story, basically about a kid that discovers that his next door neighbor is a retired superhero, played by Sylvester Stallone. It's directed by the director of a movie called Overlord that came back a few years ago. Basically, it's a World War II zombie movie. It's awesome. And so, based off any one of these pieces, I would be excited for the film. Original superhero story about someone discovering a retired superhero. Oh, that sounds interesting. The follow-up to Overlord. Oh, that sounds interesting. Sylvester Stallone as a superhero. Sounds interesting. Throw them all together, and I can't wait to see this movie. This movie was supposed to come out 2 years ago, so I've been waiting to see this movie a very long time. Back when Stallone was filming it, he was like posting on Instagram all of these set photos of him making it. I was like, man, this is going to be awesome. And then COVID happened, and I have to keep waiting for this film to come out. We don't even have a trailer yet, and they finished shooting it years ago. In 5th place, SpiderMan Across the Spider-Verse Part 1. Now, the original Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse was just a breath of fresh air as an animated film, as a Spider-Man story, and kicking off this multiverse craze that has gotten so popular that 4 different movies on this list are multiverse films. And so, of course, I was curious about what they were going to do next. And just a few weeks back, we got our first little teaser trailer for this movie. And in the trailer, they announced that this is only part 1 of 2. So they're telling a big big epic story that needs to be told in 2 parts. We got Spider-Man 2099 in the mix, and whatever else is going on here, I can't wait to check it out. In 4th place, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness. Now, this is a movie that I'm excited for on so many different levels. Ever since Infinity War, I have just wanted to see a lot more of Doctor Strange. Then What If came out and I went, I really, really want to see a lot more of Doctor Strange. And now he's finally getting his 2nd film. Add to that Sam Raimi. Comic book movie legend is returning to the genre almost 15 years since the last time he directed a comic book movie. And then, of course, we've got multiverse in the title. Right there, conceptually, this is a movie that has a lot to be very excited about. Then at the end of Spider-Man No Way Home, we got that first little teaser for the movie, and you're bringing Wanda into the mix. You've got Strange Supreme in the mix. And even in just the first trailer, we get a bunch of these weird, freaky, Lovecraftian creatures showing up. You got a reference to Lovecraft just in the title of the movie. So very excited for this film. Now, I will say this. At the end of 2021, they did 6 weeks of reshoots, and the rumors and speculation is that they did that to add in more cameos, more guest appearances. And on the one hand, some of that just makes me so very excited for all the potential things that can happen in light of Disney acquiring Fox. There's a lot that can happen there. A week or 2 back, Soups tweeted out, imagine Doctor Strange 2, Portals-like sequence. Chris Evans steps out, making his return to the MCU. He opens his mouth, he says flame on, and his clothes burn off, and it's Human Torch. This is our introduction to the Fantastic Four in the MCU. And like reading that, my first reaction is like, yeah, that would be awesome. And they would have like outsmarted me in that moment, except for the fact that you tweeted this and now you're not outsmarting because I'm gonna be thinking, expecting it to happen now. And as cool as that would be if Chris Evans showed up as Human Torch in the MCU, there's this flip side to it of like, everything cool about a movie shouldn't be, hey, I know that guy. Hey, I know that guy is a different guy, but now he's this other guy that he played in a different Marvel property. Now, I have no reason to doubt Kevin Feige or Sam Raimi, but with the way the internet works, we get so excited after something like Spider-Man No Way Home that we just want to see more of that. And sometimes we forget that that can be just a gimmick. And story always needs to come first. Those little moments, the portal sequence, the appearances that happened in Spider-Man No Way Home, that had meaning because the story earned it. It wasn't just a bunch of cameos of people popping up without a story explanation for it. So we got to keep that in mind. So just a little bit of a warning there. Real quick, before I give you my top 3, remember to share your picks down below in the comments section. Also remember, there is a companion video to this over on my Patreon page. You can join for just $21 per year and get all the exclusives that I put out in 2022 over on Patreon, including that video with 17 more of my most anticipated movies of the year. If you're interested, the link is down below in the description. In 3rd place, Avatar 2. Now, if you've been following my channel for any amount of time, you probably are well aware that I love James Cameron's films, and also know that I'm extremely frustrated that he got kidnapped and taken off to Pandora, and he's decided to spend 30 years of his life only making Avatar films. Of the real James Cameron films that are written, directed by him, I think that Avatar is his weakest film. I still think it's good. Of course, it's a technological masterpiece, but on a story level, it is Ferngully, Dances with Wolves, Pocahontas, Last Samurai, except up in space. All that said, this is James Cameron. His track record right now, he's done 2 sequels in the past, Aliens and Terminator 2. Both of those movies are top 5 favorite films for me. Other track record for James Cameron. The last 2 movies that he wrote and directed became the top 2 highest grossing films of all time until Endgame came around, and Endgame needed 22 movies of buildup to defeat James Cameron's record. That's James Cameron. You never write off James Cameron. I am as skeptical about Avatar 2 as anyone, but it's James Cameron. And nobody has a better track record with sequels than James Cameron, and this is a James Cameron sequel. Do I think it's insane that in the last 24 years, James Cameron has only directed one movie, and his next 4 movies are all sequels to that one movie, in which case there will be a 30-year period of time where he only does Avatar films? Yes, I think that is absolutely insane. But when you're James Cameron, and you're the king of the world, and you did back-to-back numbers like Titanic and Avatar, you get to be crazy and do whatever you want, and I will give you the benefit of the doubt, while ranting and raving about the fact that I wish you'd done something different with your career. But, gotta be honest, I want to see what James Cameron has been up to for the last 13 years developing this Avatar sequel. Our runner-up and setting the record for most consecutive years straight on my most anticipated of the year list, Top Gun Maverick. Now, I grew up watching the original Top Gun. Some of my earliest childhood memories are of watching the original Top Gun, and then whenever Take My Breath Away kicked in, my parents kicked me out of the room and I didn't know what was going on. A few years later, I understood what was up with that. But anyway, I loved the original, and Tom Cruise is one of these actors that always delivers. He gives it everything. So much so that he will dangle himself from a skyscraper or a helicopter or learn how to fly a jet in order to entertain me. And this is a film he's taken a very long time to make sure that they did this film right and it gets the right release window. One of my saddest memories from this last year is that I went to the theater and they gave me a Top Gun cup. And on the cup it said, "Coming Summer 2020. As it turns out, it's coming Summer 2022, and I cannot wait to check this one out. The trailers look like they were absolutely nailing everything that I want this movie to be and where Maverick should be in life. But coming in at number 1, the Batman. Batman is one of my top 2 favorite comic book movie characters of all time. So anytime that we get a new Batman movie, I'm going to be very excited to check it out. And as I mentioned earlier in this video, Batman 1989 was such a pivotal film for me as a lover of films, as well as kind of getting into the nerdy fandom. So new Batman film, new Batman franchise. I just can't wait to check it out. From there, back several years, this was going to be Batfleck the movie. That fell through, and I was very disappointed because Ben Affleck has a screenwriting Oscar for Good Will Hunting and directed Argo, which won Best Picture, and he was going to write and direct a Batman movie. So when that fell through, that was disappointing. But of all the people to replace him, Matt Reeves might have been my number 1 pick to do so. He had just done 2 Planet of the Apes movies, and with Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, he just showed that he could tell a story that was serious, that had a Shakespearean tragedy element to it, while having apes on horsebacks dual-wielding machine guns battling a tank. It can have something dramatic and serious and something silly at the same time and feel totally consistent in taking it seriously. And that's exactly what I would want for a Batman movie. Then we've gotten several trailers now, and every single one of them has sold me on the fact that this is the Batman movie that I want to see. That it is a detective story. It's taking influences from Seven. It's comic book-y, it's exaggerated, but it also is dark and grounded in other ways. It has everything that I want. It's a lived-in, fleshed-out Gotham. So for me, on so many levels, for so many different reasons, it's my number 1 most anticipated movie of the year. If you enjoyed this video and want more like it, remember I do have a companion video to this over on my Patreon page with 17 more of my most anticipated films of 2022. For just $21 per year, you can get all of the exclusive videos that I post over there on Patreon. If you're interested, the link is down below in the description, and thank you so much for watching.